Wake up, babe. Hello, everyone. Hello. Happy Tuesday. We made it to another live, and this one's going to be very interesting. I'm just going to let you know from the get-go. If you're very easily triggered, please go away. Please unsubscribe. This is not for you. Okay, I only want open-minded individuals over here. I would rather have 10,000 open-minded individuals than like 1 million snowflakes. Like, I don't want that, okay? I've had that in previous channels. I do not want that. So this is your trigger warning because we're going to be talking about a theory that it's gonna piss people off. It's gonna piss people off, right? And I've made so many videos regarding Eric Gower, the private driver, and I have another theory that maybe, just maybe, this private driver, Eric Gower, could also be Papa Rodger. Now, for those of you who are new to this case, for those of you who maybe are still catching up and watching some of my older videos, guys, I'm gonna do a quick refresher. And over on Facebook, Papa Rodgers was a very prominent figure in a discussion group who adamantly believed that police had found a knife sheath. Now, you have to realize how extreme this is because it was the early days, back in November 30th, and even before then, when Papa Rodger was already posting a lot of information, a lot of details over on Facebook. And this was before we really knew anything about this case, right? So if you are in the chat, let me know, please. Just leave a comment, leave a like if you are in here, guys. Give it a like. Again, when we are talking about these things, the algorithm doesn't like it. We know this, right? So make sure you support the channel by giving it a like and leaving a comment. Also, you guys are probably wondering, I forgot I was wearing this thing. One of you told me I was really fat. Literally, one of you guys told me, Nika, you're kind of getting really fat. So here's $30 to your Cash App. Buy yourself a weighted vest so that you're not a fat monster anymore. And I guess I'm supposed to like wear this, and it's 15 pounds, literally 15 pounds. Like, I better have abs by the end of the week. Otherwise, this is going in the garbage. Like, thanks, I guess. Thanks for calling me fat. Thanks. I'm appreciative, though. I like honest criticism. But the scale says otherwise. Either way, I'll wear it for you, right? So, yes, we're going to be talking about this theory, and I don't think that it's that far-fetched. Now, bear with me because I am on the crop top, right? And again, we've discussed this private driver very heavily, and there are so many inconsistencies in my opinion. Of course, these are my opinions, my theories, my speculations. So yeah, a lot of inconsistencies in his narrative. Okay, for one, I've already went through several interviews that he has given, right? He gave the name Eric Gower to the interview he did with the Daily Mail, to the interview that he did with Law and Crime, and to the interview that he did, I think there were two actually, with the Daily Mail. Why is he telling them that he lives in Pullman? Supposedly near Coburg, okay? We know that he lives in Moscow, and then he's claiming that he lived 1,200 feet away from the defendant's door, okay? What's very strange in all of this is that people forget that Eric Gower allegedly took a week off right after the crime was committed. Now, what's also very strange is that he has extremely close and, again, my opinion, very shady connections to Moscow Police Department. We know that not all police departments are perfect, but Moscow Police Department really seems to just be up there as far as police corruption. And the fact that Eric Gower has such close ties to the police department all you have to do is go to ci.moscow.idaho.us, basically the government website showing the police department information. And if you pull up their 2021 annual report, for example, you will see images of Mr. Eric Gower dressed as Santa Claus. So he's doing this volunteer work. His wife works for the police department. These relationships that people have with Moscow PD have to be analyzed, especially when Mr. Eric Gower was the last person to have allegedly seen Kaylee and Maddie alive. Remember, he is the one that dropped them off. So of course we have to analyze everything. What's also very interesting is that he never actually dropped the girls off all the way to the door. He said he was afraid of getting robbed. But then he said that the girls were drunk, but that they were safe. But inconsistencies yet again, right? So then we have one of Steve's interviews where he is saying that the private driver is actually a family friend. But then in another interview, we have Olivia claiming that she tracked down the driver. So which is it? Was it a family friend, or did Olivia track it down, right? Then he, meaning Eric Gower, also says that he does not know Maddie's name, but yet he does actually know Maddie's name. And I will pin all of the Eric Gower videos that I've made since the beginning of time. I think he's a little bit suspicious. I think he's a little bit creepy, especially because I think in every video I've made regarding Eric Gower, I've talked about how he basically bragged about stalking people. He had these girls' coordinates shared on his Facebook, bragging about stalking women. 2 young women who appear to be hiking in Idaho on their own. Is that a little bit strange? Now, he also tried very, very hard to convince his wife that there was no danger because his wife was supposedly afraid of Mr. Koberger, that she allegedly always find him creepy. But when he gave this interview, Moscow Police Department had not yet made an arrest. So how did he know that there was no danger? Unless, of course, maybe the danger was him. Speculation. Now, Nika, how dare you speculate about this young man? He's a stunning young man who worked for U of I. He's a volunteer. He's doing all these great things, and he was checked by Moscow Police Department. Again, this is why we have to be very careful with relationships with any outsider like the private driver regarding Moscow Police Department. Because in my mind, the first thing that I'm imagining is, well, his wife works for Moscow Police Department. He is friends with all of the cops. All that it could take is, well, that's good enough. That's a good enough alibi, right? Well, your wife works there. That's a good enough alibi. No need to actually check him for wounds or cuts or bruises. Did he even go to the police station? Because from what we know is that he had a Taco Bell receipt that cleared him. Okay, first of all, I honestly don't understand the whole Taco Bell receipt thing, because even if he went to Taco Bell after dropping Kaylee and Maddie off, then he wouldn't have gotten there until later, right? And Taco Bell closes around 3:30 in the morning, if I'm not mistaken, the one in Moscow. So what does Taco Bell have anything to do with a crime that we are being told took place at 4 a.m.? Do you see what I mean? If Moscow Police Department is telling us that the 4 victims were deleted off of the planet at 4 a.m., okay, but if Eric Gower went to Taco Bell before 3:30, before closing time, how does that clear him? Because then technically he could have still had time to go to 1122 King Road and do what he needed to do. And look, I know where you're going with this. Don't go there. I'm not saying he had anything to do with this, but the Taco Bell thing doesn't make sense to me. Now, again, this man, the last man to have seen Kaylee and Maddie alive, took a week off right after the crime was committed. Is that another coincidence? Another coincidence is that he, meaning Papa Rodger also started making these posts on Facebook with a lot of detail around the same time. Interesting, because remember, they had not yet made an arrest. Eric Gower is the last person to have seen Kaylee and Maddie live. He takes off a whole week of work. If there is any room for Eric Gower to potentially be Papa Rodger, this week off of work, that could have bought him time to do whatever he needed to do in the Papa Rodger account, to throw some leads, to throw some hints into that account, Papa Rodgers, and lead the police department into where he wanted them to, basically in what direction he wanted them to look at, right? And what's crazy is that because Eric Gower has a wife that works in Moscow PD, he could also potentially have a lot of insider information prior to any of us having any insider information. And Papa Rodger had insider information. I have always speculated that Papa Rodger is somebody who had insider information, who is either directly law enforcement or FBI trying to, create these accounts and try to pull somebody in, or somebody who knew the victims, who last saw the victims, right? And I'm pulling one of the Papa Rodger posts here. This was posted on the Facebook page, Papa Rodger, November 30th. It says, of the evidence released, the murder weapon has been consistent as a large fixed blade knife. This leads me to believe they found the sheath. The evidence was released prior to autopsies. You just guessed it, Papa Rodgers? You just magically guessed that they found the sheath? Or could this Papa Rodger account be created and controlled by Eric Gower, who has insider information potentially because of his ties to Moscow PD, through being friends, being a volunteer with Moscow PD, and having a wife that works there? This is before any of us knew anything, right? Papa Rodger was active very, very early on. And there's a little back and forth here with Papa Rodger and someone by the name of Dustin. This is how the conversation goes, right? So somebody is responding to Papa Rodger about his sheath theory, because again, if none of us have heard about anybody being arrested, there are no leads, and then we have this magic account that just pops up out of nowhere, literally popped out of nowhere, is going on Facebook and giving these very strange theories that could potentially make sense, but are a little too detailed for most of us, right? Because it's like, that's a little too detailed. How are you getting any information, or are you just this creative magically? Papa Rodger says, I'm only responding to you, Dustin. Why would you even bring up the unaliver thought? Odd. Dustin says, sorry, I trashed your stupid sheath theory and I couldn't take it. Any other brainbuster theories? Maybe they found a receipt laying in the kitchen for the knife. So Dustin is basically mocking Papa Rodger. Dustin is saying, yeah, your theory is stupid. Like, you're just assuming that they found the sheath for whatever reason. And of course, because none of us knew anything regarding the IDAHO4 yet, it sounded a little too far-fetched. Like, okay, they just magically found the sheath, right? And Dustin is saying, yeah, your theory is a little bit stupid. Like, I'm sure also the unaliver left the receipt laying around, right? Right, with the sheath. But it turns out that Papa Rodger was right. And this, I don't think, is just a random guess. Papa Rodger also goes on to reply to Dustin and says, why are you angry? Why are you angry? Basically, why are you angry that I'm throwing this sheath theory out there. Then Dustin says, why do you communicate like a serial killer? Yes, I agree with Alex. The sheath is a little too convenient planned. It's a way too convenient. What is also very shady, in my opinion, guys, it's too suspicious. The fact that when we go through the legal documents, we know that they didn't actually see the sheath on the first go round. It was not till the second or the third time around. So how do you miss a sheath? How do you miss a sheath? I want to know what the time frame was from when they first entered and searched the crime scene to the time when they actually found the sheath. Because I get it, if it was under Maddie, for example, you're not going to see it right away. But I need to know, for all of us here, we all need to know, how long did it take Moscow PD and the detectives to actually notice the sheath? Because in my opinion, it should have been found fairly quickly. And when Moscow PD fails to be transparent with us, of course, that makes all of us wonder, well, could it be planted? And unfortunately, the sheath being planted is not that far-fetched, because we have seen how Moscow PD has done things in the past. They literally have a track record for doing things illegally, for breaking the law. Don't even get me started on Stickergate. Go watch my Stickergate videos that I made in the early days, guys, if you're new. A little bit weird, right? And then, of course, people got way too uncomfortable with Papa Rodger, again, because he kept sharing tidbits of information on the Facebook page, and then later on, the truth, snippets of truth would come out through Moscow PD doing interviews, and it's like, wait a minute, did Papa Rodger get it right? And if he did, how so? And they removed him from the Facebook group, I believe, after a little while. There's a lady by the name of Christine, says admin here. No, Papa Rodger was never a mod or admin in this group. He was on here and argued incessantly with people and said some really creepy stuff. So again, I'm just making random connections to Eric, right? Because Papa Rodger was saying creepy things, was giving us information before any of the cops were, before any law enforcement agents were, before any of the family members. He was giving us information, and people in the Facebook group were like, he's too creepy. And again, I personally think that Eric Gower is creepy. From the stalking comment alone that he made on the Facebook page, and by the way, I have actually made several videos talking about that before, and I have on the thumbnail the image of his disgusting comment. So yeah, both are a little creepy. Both are a little bit suspicious, right? They said he was on here and argued incessantly with people and said some really creepy stuff and posted similar questions to Brian's crime questions. I need to know, for all of us as well, is it possible that Eric Gower had any sort of interaction with Brian Koberger? Again, these are both PhD students. They're both around 28, 29 years old, about the same age. So is it possible that they could have had any interaction? We know that Eric Gower was allegedly a private driver. Remember when Chief Fry lied to us and said it was an Uber driver? And then later Uber came forward and said, yeah, we were not involved in this shit. Do not get us involved in this, okay? This is your own private driver from the university. So because Eric and Mr. Koberger are roughly the same age, and Eric Gower was saying that he lived 1,200 feet from Koberger, it just kind of makes you wonder. It makes me wonder, did they have some sort of run-in? Did they not like each other? Or maybe jealous husband. We know that Eric Gower is a married individual. I've seen married men lose their shit because their wife is maybe attracted to somebody else. Just a theory. And if he had any sort of interactions with Brian, and you know Brian's first and last name, it's very easy these days to do a quick search online and find people's background, even things for college. Like I had to write some legal or some papers for school when I was doing my master's, and then, like, if you look up my full name, those will pop up and they're attached to the university. So technically, anyone that had Bryan Kohberger's name and kind of knew what school he had attended prior to being in Pullman could have looked up his university with his name and would have found this information with something similar to the crime questionnaires that he was doing for school, right? So, do you know where I'm going with this? Am I making sense? Because I know sometimes my ADD, I'm kind of all over the place. What I'm saying is that basically, technically, speculating, theorizing, if Eric Gower is Papa Rodger and he hated Bryan for whatever reason, he could have very easily Googled Bryan's crime questions and then created a fake Facebook to distract people. Again, this is the same man to have who last saw Kaylee and Maddie live, right? Who has ties to Moscow Police Department, who has a wife who works for Moscow Police Department. This is a man who volunteers often, dresses up as Santa Claus for Moscow Police Department. This admin woman here is saying, we removed Papa Rodgers at 7:10 the evening before Bryan's arrest. He created a group page and had 6 people in it. No one has heard from Papa Rodger since the arrest. I want to know who those 6 people were. Is it possible that maybe it was some other law enforcement buddies, or just was it random people following him? I really don't remember who was following Papa Rodger back in that day. I should have kept track of that. But if any of you did, please feel free to let me know. This is getting very heavy. Whew. I can feel my 8-pack already. Not really. And what's interesting to me is that back in the day, like I'm pulling up this article here that was in the Daily Mail. This was from January 2023, right? The messages shared by Papa Rodgers that were basically all accurate, okay? There was an ex-FBI investigator that was doing these interviews with the Daily Mail, and they were saying, well, I believe that Bryan Kohberger posted in online discussion groups before his arrest with details about the Idaho murders that no one could have known. Which is interesting because they never found anything, right? But what they're saying is, well, maybe Papa Rodger is Bryan Kohberger, but actually when you go through the messages that were shared by Papa Rodger, I don't know. I don't think, knowing what we know now about Mr. Kohberger, I don't think that that's how Bryan Kohberger would express himself. We know he is on the spectrum, right? He's autistic, and people who are on the spectrum, and a lot of people who are actually neurodivergent, express themselves in a very, let me see. What's the word? Proper, in a very proper tone, very formal, overly formal speech, if anything. And that was actually mentioned in the psychological legal document that was shared with all of us regarding Bryan Kohberger, right? That he has this very formal tone, and that is a characteristic of high-functioning autism, right? Some people call this, like if you look up the DSM, the diagnostic manual, basically, that we utilize in psychology, it'll say pedantic style of speech, right? Because a lot of individuals who are on the spectrum use this really, really advanced vocabulary or very complex sentence structures, and they sometimes seem out of place for like casual conversation. You're like, why is he talking like that? He's literally on the spectrum. So breaking down, going through all of the messages that were shared by whoever was running that account of Papa Rodgers on Facebook a few years ago. I don't think it could even be Brian Koberger because it's just too regular. It's too regular. And a person with autism, when they're typing, guys, when they have this pedantic, this very formal vocabulary, these complex sentence structures, they think in that way. So it's not like they can create an account and put themselves in like pretending that there's somebody else. They can't do that. So whoever was running an account is a basic person. It's a regular person. And if I were to guess, somebody is neurotypical, more normal, I'm gonna say, guess who's more normal? Mr. Brian Koberger or Eric Gower? I'm gonna go with Eric Gower. He seems very normal, very typical, neurotypical. He doesn't have the brain to really utilize these complex sentence structures because it's not how he thinks. It's not how his brain works. I'm building up the chat because I want to run this theory by you guys, of course. Of course. All right. Am I skinny yet? I'm going to take this off for real. It's getting hot in here. Sorry, guys. My laptop is being uber slow. I mean, and even though he did see the girls like hours before they were unalived, it's just weird to me that he would read the affidavit. He read the affidavit. That's like not typical, right? I don't know about you guys, but I've never really been able to like come to terms with Eric Gower because in my opinion, he should have been a suspect, number one suspect, if not on that list. He should have been on that list from day one, right? Because it's not good enough. It shouldn't be good enough that your wife works for Moscow PD, that you're close friends with all the cops. That's not a good alibi, okay? And having a receipt from Taco Bell 4 a.m. or before that doesn't clear you, okay? Eric Gower was 29 years old when this crime took place. He's a graduate from U of I. How can he be a friend of Steve's? Just because everyone in town knows him, that doesn't exclude him from being a suspect. Okay? By the way, do we even know nowadays? Do we actually know, does he live in Moscow or Pullman? Does he actually live 1,200 or 1,500 away from Mr. Koberger? I just think that it's a big red flag that Moscow PD didn't hold him to a higher standard than a freaking Taco Bell receipt. Because anyone can pull up a receipt, right? Anyone can find a receipt on the floor even. We don't even know if it's his. Did he pay with cash? Did he pay with card? Did he even go to the police department to be looked at, to be interrogated, to be there in person? Something tells me no. My gut tells me no. I don't know, but that's my theory. I don't think he actually went. I think that because he's close to Moscow Police Department, he's buddies with them, all that he probably did was a call. Yeah, guys, I have a Taco Bell receipt. I'm good, right? Okay, cool. And my wife works there, so we're good, right? Yeah, we're good, bro. When in reality, the last person that last saw Kaylee and Maddie live should have been, in my opinion, stripped down to the bare minimum. Cuts, wounds, bruises. And he came forward to the police with a receipt from the week before. It took him a whole week because he had a week off. It's not like he went the next day that I'm aware of. A receipt from a week ago. I don't know about you, but I don't keep all my fast food receipts. It's weird. It's weird. Hello, Rex. Hi, Rex. Hi, Jim. Jim says, putting out insider info like Steve Gonsalves does now. Jazz King. Hello, Rick. Hello. Hi, Big Mike. Alex, yes. The sheath is too convenient. Hello, Amanda. Hi, Darkles. Hello, Mitchell. Hi, Alex. I wonder if the cops were wearing cameras during their initial investigations. I really hope that they were wearing cameras throughout, but we know that Moscow PD likes to magically have their cameras turned off in the middle of the most important interrogations, interventions, run-ins with citizens, like they did with Mr. Kopaka, right? Our veteran friend. May he rest in peace. Cheryl says, how can the sheath not be bloody? And how is there not more DNA on the sheath, right, Fireball? Exactly. Because I've shown you guys my own K-bar. I've shown you guys my own sheath up close, and you have seen all of the stitches. We're supposed to believe that no DNA got into any of those stitches, not on the outside, not anywhere except for the inside. Yeah, okay, give me a break. And again, the fact that it's so far-fetched for so many people to think that things can't be planted, it makes me worried for humanity. Because when we look at so many cases that have taken place in our country, guys, cops plant evidence all the time. All the time. All this stuff comes out sometimes a decade or two later, sometimes later than that. It's like, yeah, we did, you know, but it was like 30 years ago. So then the judge just gives them a little pat. Oh my God, you're bad. You're a naughty cop. Now, naughty. Rex, we need body cams. Yes, we need body cams. Actually, I was just reading a document that, forget the state, maybe it was Montana, but they're creating these suits for cops. And any motion, they're motion activated. So any motion that the cop does triggers the camera to start recording. And it makes it so that cops cannot turn off the cameras either, which in my opinion is like, thank you, because we don't need cops turning off cameras. Okay, it's safer for cops and it's safer for citizens to have cameras running when there's any activity whatsoever. I have read and asked some of my cop friends as well, what do you think about that? And there's mixed answers, guys. If a cop is worried that he's going to be recorded, in my opinion, that's a red flag. You should have that camera on if there is any motion whatsoever and you're out and about, right? Jason says they didn't say nothing about DNA until January 5th. Don Vito says the sheath being planted is more likely than unlikely. Carl says, how is the sheath under a victim but has no red fluids on it? Exactly. These basic things that the guilters just don't want to talk about, think about. Hello, Tamara says, please go to Open Mind. Hello, Big Mike. Don Vito says, makes sense, Papa Rodger's EG seem to talk the same creepy way, and obviously Papa Rodger had some inside law enforcement information. EG's wife works for the police, I believe. Makes sense to me. Thank you, Don Vito. I don't know if anyone else has actually covered this theory. I think nobody else has covered this theory, but I don't know. There's so many crime sleuths, and that's good, right? Yes, Paco, exactly. He has a very large knife collection. I remember, and his main knife is a bat knife that could do a lot of damage very fast. What's very interesting is that his Pinterest was really creepy. Okay, weird masks, weird knives, and now only the people that have saved those images have it. Because he went in there, and I can't find his Pinterest anymore. Did he delete things from the Pinterest? Did he delete Pinterest in general? Either way, you can never really fully delete things off of Pinterest, right? Because there's the Wayback Machine. So Cheers to the Wayback Machine. Paco, yes, I've also said this, right? Having a pregnant wife, you're out there, you know, drunk driving college girls home. It's a little bit odd. Was Eric questioned? I don't know. We don't know. Was the DNA taken from him? I don't know, but I personally doubt it. I doubt it. I also agree with Paco saying that he's the secret informant who called in the tip. It's very possible, guys. No notification, says Brenda. Of course not. A lot of you guys are telling me that you guys are getting unsubbed also because, you know, we push against the narrative. So, yeah. Nigel says you look like you're ready for a parachute jump. I've done that before. This is way heavier, it seems like. Hello, Aunt B. Hello, Susan. Yes, Carl, totally. Eric needs to explain Dylan's 2:10 a.m. phone call to him 10 minutes after he dropped off Kaylee and Madison. What did Dylan request in his response? Dawn says that Papa Rodgers was law enforcement controlling the narrative towards Brian. Also very possible. But we should be able to track and see where that IP address was coming from, right? So I'm leaving you guys with this. You guys want to do a tandem jump with me? Let's do it. Okay. Ugh. My God. I'm gonna wake up with like a 12-pack. All right, guys. That was heavy. Bro, why? I'm probably never going to use that thing again, though, but thanks. Leave a like, leave a comment. If you agree with my theory of Eric Gower potentially being Papa Rodger, leave a number 1. Vote, please. Vote. I want to know what's on your mind, babe. I want to know. I need to know. If you think that Eric Gower is just a saint, he was just there being a gentleman, taking care of the girls, being the greatest private driver for the university, you know, regular man, leave it too. So, see you guys.